Hello, hello, hello. How are you? If you're just joining, drop a comment. Let me know where you're watching from. I want to talk about something this morning that I have not talked about before. Not on LinkedIn, not in my newsletter, not in any of the lives I've done this week. Because 2 days ago, I had a conversation that I have not been able to stop thinking about. If you're a senior tech professional, stay with me for the next 20 minutes because the man I spoke to is the extreme version of a road most senior professionals are quietly walking down. And the further you walk, the harder it gets to turn around. I'm going to call him Robert. That's not his real name. Robert is a senior account executive. He spent the last 30 years working in tech, including years at one of the largest technology companies in the world, a name you will recognize immediately. He worked evenings, he worked weekends, he prioritized his employer above everything. He was the kind of person his managers loved, always available, always responsive, always delivering. And in 30 years of doing that, he has not enjoyed a single one of them. Not one. Not the years at the big company, not the years that came before, not the years that came after. 30 years of waking up to a job he never wanted to wake up to. Today, the maximum Robert has ever earned is $200,000 a year. He's currently employed, but he just took a significant cut in income. And he's worried about his retirement, worried about it deeply. He's been looking for a new role for 6 months. In 6 months, he has landed 6 interviews. He has received 0 job offers. 6 interviews in 6 months. Let me tell you what that actually means. The senior tech professionals I work with land 6 interviews in a single week. One of them, Dylan, landed 50 interviews in 3 weeks. 50. He went from an e-commerce manager role to a VP of marketing role. He grew his income by 5x. And a year and a half later, he doubled it again. Daniel applied to 109 jobs in a single 2-hour evening. Just 2 hours, one night. He landed 16 interviews in 24 days. He doubled his salary in 5 weeks. Kieran went from $400,000 a year as a VP of technology to $540,000 a year as a senior VP somewhere else. Chris went from $230,000 a year as an account executive to $345,000 a year as a director, an extra $115,000 a year. 6 interviews in 6 months is not a search. It's a slow goodbye to your own career. Now, I can already hear what some of you are thinking. That's not me. I've had good chapters in my career. I'm earning more than $200,000 a year. I'm not 30 years in. I'm not going to end up like Robert. Good. I'm glad. That means you have time. But here's what I want you to understand. Robert didn't get where he is in one decision. He got there through 30 years of small ones. The Sunday dinner he skipped to finish a deck. The vacation he postponed because of a quarterly close. The friend's wedding he missed. The morning he chose the inbox over the gym. The night he chose the laptop over his own peace. Each one of those decisions felt small at the time. None of them looked like the decision that would cost him 3 decades of joy. And yet, here he is. You don't end up like Robert because you make one bad choice. You end up like Robert because you make 1,000 reasonable ones in the wrong order over a long enough timeline. The Sunday you stay home to finish a deck happens on its own without you noticing. The vacation you postpone just this once becomes a pattern. The kids' game you miss for an emergency meeting becomes a season of missed games. By the time you notice the pattern, 10 years have passed. You're not Robert yet, but you might be on his road. And that's why we're having this conversation. When you drop dead, your job posts a new opening within 24 hours. Your employer will not remember the weekends you sacrificed. They will not remember the evenings you missed with your family. They will not remember the vacations you canceled. They will replace you and move on. But the family you missed will remember. The kids whose games you skipped will remember. The marriage you neglected will remember. The body you run into the ground for a quarterly target will remember. This is what happens when you approach your career in the wrong order. Most senior professionals choose the role first. They get the job. Then they adapt their life around it. They move closer to the office. They cancel time with family. They work nights. They work weekends. They accept the stress, the politics, the schedule, the conditions, little by little. Their entire life starts orbiting the job. And it's never one big sacrifice. It's 1,000 small ones. That's what makes it dangerous. If your boss came to you and said, give up your kid's childhood for this promotion, you would say no. But that's not how the question gets asked. The question gets asked one Sunday afternoon at a time, one missed dinner at a time, one late evening at a time. And you say yes, because each individual yes feels reasonable. That's the trap. The professionals I work with do the opposite. They define the life first, and then they find the role that supports that life. Let me give you 3 examples. Matt. Matt is one of my clients. Today, Matt works from wherever he wants. Last month, he was in Brazil. By the way, he's Canadian. Last month, he was in Brazil. The month before, Argentina. Sometimes he's in Canada. Sometimes Spain. He decides where he works from. When my grandmother was passing away in Argentina, may she rest in peace, I flew down to be by her side. I was born in Argentina. That's where most of my family still lives. While I was there with my grandmother before she passed, Matt decided to fly to Argentina just to be with me. I never forget that. Matt's career adapts to Matt's life, not the other way around. Jay. Jay's full name is Jayesh. When Jay came to me, he was working from 6 a.m. until 10 p.m., sometimes midnight. He felt like he was losing his family. He told me something I've never forgotten. He said, what's the point of living in North America if I'm working as if I were back home? With the same lack of boundaries, the same disrespect for my time. He came to North America for a better life. He was reproducing the same overwork patterns he came here to escape. We changed that. He now has a job that respects his time, a job that lets him have dinner with his family, a job that lets him be a husband, a father, a human being. When I reached out to him recently, he said, I work 9 to 5. He's an executive, by the way, for a very large organization here. I can introduce you to him. Amazing. 9 to 5. He was able to take a 4-week cruise, something that he was never able to do before. And then there's me. When I used to work for or consult for Scotiabank, my boss, Simone, I love her, asked me to come back to the office. My commute downtown was an hour and a half each way, 3 hours a day, to warm up a chair, while my actual stakeholders sat in different countries, not even here, not even in the same city. I told her, no thanks. And she said, what do you mean? I said, basically she explained to me, the executive team wants us all back in the office. I told her, I had built a life around being home. I love seeing my kids when they wake up, making them breakfast, packing their lunches, dropping them off at school, picking them up, playing board games before dinner. My kids will grow up. I want to be there for it. Simone said, okay, stay home. We'll talk in a few months. A few months later, she brought it up again. The executive team was insisting. I said no again. I was allowed to stay home. Now, the reason I had the courage to push back is that I know how to switch jobs fast. If Simone had insisted, I would have been at a new company in 2 to 4 weeks. That's what leverage looks like. That's what protects what matters. I want to be very clear about something. I love earning well. I love providing for my wife, for my kids, for my dog, for myself, and I love helping others, other professionals, earn more. Money is great. It's not what we sacrifice for, but it's good to have a lot of it. But money does not come above other priorities. It does not come above your non-negotiables. For some professionals, a non-negotiable is fully remote. For others, it's flexible hours. For others, it's no overtime. For others, it's freedom to travel. For others, it's a higher title and bigger responsibilities. For others, it's feeling challenged and supported. What's your non-negotiable? Have you ever stopped to ask? Most senior professionals haven't. They just keep waking up, dragging themselves out of bed, working 8+ hours for someone else's dream, and waiting for Friday to feel like a person again. I want to tell you something I genuinely believe. You can have a career that brings you happiness, joy, excitement, fulfillment, and financial wealth. All of those combined. It's not a luxury. It's a must. Because what's the point of living otherwise? Now, I have some news. Bad news first. The Switch Jobs Challenge that started this week is closed. We have a small group of senior tech professionals going through it right now. They're loving it. About a dozen of them. And they're loving it. They're truly loving it, staying all the way until the very last minute of me explaining these things and teaching them. They're soaking it all in, engaging, asking questions. Their commitment is moving me. So, if you're watching this and thinking, Brian, can I still join this week's challenge? The answer is no. Now, the good news, we just opened a new cohort for next week. Spots are limited. I run these challenges in small groups on purpose because I want every single person inside to actually be coached, not just informed. If you're a senior tech professional in the United States or Canada, and your career is no longer fitting the life you want to live, I want you in the next cohort. The Switch Jobs Challenge is where you learn the strategy that none of this is taught publicly. Not on YouTube, not on blogs, not on podcasts, not in books, because what I teach inside would be dangerous in the wrong hands. But in your hands, it gives you the unfair advantage that lets you switch jobs from your ultimate position of power. The link to register is switchjobsnow.com. I'll drop it in the comments in a moment. switchjobsnow.com. And before you close this stream, I want you to do one thing. Don't think about Robert. Think about you. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, what did you imagine your life would look like by now? Are you living that life? Are you slowly drifting somewhere else? Most people don't notice the drift until they wake up one day and they are 30 years in and they don't recognize the life they're living. You don't have to wait for that moment. You can interrupt the drift right now. The Switch Jobs Challenge starts Monday. Spots are limited. switchjobsnow.com. If your career is no longer fitting the life you want to live, this is the moment. Bring a friend, bring a partner, bring a sibling who is stuck, bring anyone you love who deserves better than what they are setting or settling for. The job will replace you in 24 hours. Don't do the same for it. Drop your questions in the comments and I'll get to as many as I can in the next few minutes. See you Monday.